All right, welcome to another episode of I Am and More presents The Journey to More. I am super excited today because, this is the time that we come together where we have the opportunity not only to build some of our hard skills, but we build our soft skills, which are going to be the things that make us successful. You know who I am. I am the entrepreneur's attorney and business strategist, where I help you start, structure, and grow your businesses and legally protect your profits, your brand, and your business. Y'all, stop letting people steal y'all businesses. But today we are talking about living an empowered life. And our guest today is such a dynamic leader. He is the pastor of Empowerment Church. He is the chaplain of the Chicago Bears. He is the director of an entrepreneurship group. He is an entrepreneur. I know this is really the more sitting in front of us today. He is a motivational speaker and father of two. Teddy, welcome to the I Am community. Anything that I missed that you want to add?
I don't know about anything that you. I'm a friend. I'm a friend to you. That's key and critical. But no, I'm just grateful to be here. So excited to be with you. I'm honored you would think enough of me to invite me amongst the many you've had on here. I didn't even know. I was wondering if I could maybe make the consideration cut. So to have me means more than you know.
Teddy, you are hilarious. So, with that being said, you are the leader of empowerment and really what it means to live an empowered life. What do you define as empowerment?
Sure. So uh, empowerment for me, which is the name of our church, is the name of one of the organizations that I lead outside of the church. We have a separate organization that we lead, that's Community Development Corporation. It's all around this idea, though, that to be empowered is to be given the tools, freedom, encouragement, and the authority to carry out an assignment or task. And I'm really, really clear about my wheelhouse, which is that to give people the permission to dream, the permission to be, the permission to step outside of some of their things that they've done in their norm or in their average, to give them the freedom and permission, but then to give them the encouragement and the tools, right, to carry out their assignment or task. A lot of people give encouragement, but you need equipping with the encouragement. You need the tools with just kind of the conversation. So that's really what it is, to carry it out. Like, we all have an assignment, we all have responsibilities, but we need empowerment to actually carry it out and to fulfill it. And so that's the name of our church, but it's the name of, honestly, just what I feel like I am uniquely created and here to do in whatever world, door, room I walk into.
No, that's key. And one of the things you hit upon is the encouragement and the tools. And I think so many times we get inspired to do things, but we don't get the opportunity to really live that out and become that actual thing. And so just listening to that really encouraged me. And, I kind of lean on you sometimes for the tools. And when we think about tools, we think about the physical tools and things of that nature, but what are the mental tools that we need to really live empowered?
Sure. So I mean that's key, right? There are the things that we kind of teach in one of the programs that we actually were introducing, right? So that's mindset, skill set, toolkit. So you definitely need the toolkit in terms of like practical things to do and systems and strategies and all those types of things. You need to have those, you need to know where they are. But to do anything, to carry out your assignment, to lead an organization, to lead a classroom, to lead a family, to function optimally in this thing called life, live this empowered life, right? You got to have this mindset, and it requires a couple things: clarity, right? Are we clear? Are we clear enough about us and ourselves and some identity? Like, you got to have this mindset that overcome and is willing to overcome imposter syndrome and limiting beliefs. You got to have confidence is required for your mindset. You got to be really, really clear. I may not be who I used to be, but I'm not. I'm not. I may not be what I want to be. May not be where I could be. I'm not where I was. I've got the ability to do this. I've got the assignment, the call. I have the ability, the knowledge. I got to be confident about what it is that I'm doing. Confident that I even have an assignment. Confident that I'm here for a reason. You need courage, right? There's just mental toughness, the willingness to do it anyway. This just resiliency factor that I'm contending. It starts up here though. It's like, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna keep trying. I'm gonna do this and I know it's hard. I'm gonna till the hard ground. I'm gonna break open what hasn't been broken open before. But it starts undeniably in the mind. Like one of the big things I'm doing even this kind of upcoming year, and it's been something I've done before on a coaching and consulting side, but is this notion of the willingness to be a barrier breaker. So there's an obstacle in my way, but empowered people say, I know there's an obstacle there. I know others may have not done it before me. I know this other kind of thing is in the way, but I can, I will, and I must do it so that way others behind me don't have the same obstacle ahead of them. So it's just that mindset piece is everything to me personally.
No, you said so much there. You talked about clarity, overcoming, confidence, courage, and doing what you have to do and overcoming barriers. As somebody who, like, I don't know, like, I asked God the other day, I was like, how much faith do you think I have, sir? Like, how much faith do you think I have? And I'm thinking about like what that means in the natural sense of overcoming barriers and then also having the courage to keep going. But in reality, I can't complain because these are good problems that I have because I have clarity on who I am and who I am not. And so, for someone listening to this broadcast right now, what would you say to help them kind of navigate getting clear on who they are and what they're supposed to be doing?
There's a couple pieces there, right? I think some of it is who are some trusted voices in my life or that have been in my environments that have said some things about me. So I want to be really clear about like trusted voices, right? Because sometimes just because it's a voice doesn't mean it's a voice I should trust. Just because somebody says something to me doesn't mean it's true. Like that's going to be their view around them. And for those who are people of faith, I wouldn't even start with people. I would undeniably start with God. And then
Mm.
from this belief, from this intuitive feeling, maybe it's a sixth sense, maybe it's a nudge in my heart. I've got some ideas, I've got some things, I've got some that. The, my conviction as a pastor and as a spiritual leader is that God speaks to his people still today in multiple ways. I believe he uses people. I believe he uses situations. I believe he uses things, but I believe primarily his word, right? So people. So sometimes there's some voices around me that are affirming some things about me that I don't even see yet. They're acknowledging some things that I seemingly do intuitively or easy, and they're acknowledging it like, yo, this is special. And sometimes we just kind of we tune that out of this like
Yeah.
false sense of humility, or we ignore it because we're really good at it, but we've been doing it at the wrong place, so we don't like it anymore, right? Because that's totally a thing. It's like, yo, I would actually love to do this if I was in the right environment, but I've been doing it in the wrong place with the wrong people so long, I don't like it. And so we think that it's not what we're supposed to be doing. And it's like, no, we just put you in the right environment with the right people. You would thrive, you would feel fulfilled, you would feel productive. So it's like, what are some of these things I'm hearing that people are kind of saying and acknowledging that I may be taking for granted? And even if it's just kind of starting to put them in a journal and note them somewhere, like we trust way too much to our memory. So what are some things that people have said? What are some things people are saying? What are some things I notice about myself intuitively that I just kind of do that are natural? That we can come back and say whether or not this thing is the thing later or not, right? We may say knitting is it, and it's like, I don't know if that's the fullness of your call. Well, write it down. But in terms of some of those, so like, what am I hearing, kind of from some other people? What am I discerning about myself? Some people like lean in and say, well, what are you passionate about? Sometimes
Mhm.
your passions can align with that, and sometimes you may have this burden for something that's broken that I wouldn't call that you're not passionate about it, but it's bothering you and it's not bothering me, right? So like something that bothers you, one of the things I know that bothers you is like people who start these businesses without starting the business the right way. So it's like, you getting robbed and you don't even know you're getting robbed. You a half a step away from going to jail and you think you killing it. You don't even realize how much you have to lose, and you telling everybody to follow you and subscribe to you, and you like, yo, this if they ever opened your books, but it's a burden that's on your heart uniquely that I don't know if that burden started with you saying, I like doing this as much as it was like, wait a minute, I got this burden for this. This bothers me when I hear people say this. Whereas somebody else is like, I don't care what they do with their business. I don't care what that's their problem. You're like, wait a minute, this is a unique burden, a unique agitation that I can use to raise to increase my income, but to also make a significant impact. So I think some of those types of things. What am I hearing? What am I good at? What are some of my burdens? I would tell you flat out, like, if it was up to me, I wouldn't pastor. Like, it's just, it's not, it is not because I don't believe that somebody should pastor, right? I believe somebody should do it. But for me, it's like I'm really clear. It's a sense of calling. It was something that I was hearing and intentionally disregarding, something I intuitively felt on the inside. And on a good day, I'm able to go back and look at a nice note somebody wrote me like, yes, I'm making a difference. And on a bad day, it's like, yeah, I don't want to deal with these people, God, these your people. And then I get reminded of it's not about necessarily always what you may want to do, it's what have I designed you for. And I've tried and kind of I feel like I'm over answering your question. It's like sometimes you'll try to run away from some things and they just keep chasing behind you. And it's like not in a way of like toxicity, but in a way of like opportunities continually presenting themselves before you for you to operate in a space that you didn't ask to be in. And it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? What is the Lord saying through that? Because sometimes we just think it's a burning bush, but that happened once, Jamila. Like the
Yeah.
bush burned once. Like that was it's only documented one time. And like we're waiting for like the repeat of like these biblical signs or even just like these earthly signs. Like it's like, no, what are some of these things into? It's like, it's just like what? Like, what are you good at? Like, what are you uniquely good at? What are people uniquely saying back to you? What are you
Yeah.
burdened by? Like, what you feel burdened by, you might be called to either fix or help somebody else fix. Like, sometimes we kind of overcomplicate it because what we discover is your assignment has like a very specific mission, but it can have different lanes, right? So it's like I may have a different expression of it. I do empowerment with everything that I do. It happens to be the name of my church, but as a director of the coaching program, I'm empowering you all to carry out your assignment or your task. Well, I'm with the athlete, I'm empowering them to carry out their assignment or their task. When I'm in the educational space and I'm working with teachers or superintendents, I'm empowering them to carry out their assignment or task. So it's like some of it is like, okay, this is it. I can align with that. The question from there that I feel like people can really get stuck at is what's my lane? Because they think that because I do this,
Mm.
I only do that. And it's like, no, what's my lane? What are my lanes? What are my delivery systems that I carry this out in? Like that's where, in my opinion, from what I've seen, people really get stuck. Because if I can't figure out my lanes, I think I got my like clarity wrong. And it's like, no, I might be clear on what I'm supposed to do. I just may not know all the ways I can do it. So that's
Nah, y'all see why this is the king of empowerment. It was so much that was said there in terms of like helping us really shape, even like searching for clarity, because as you grow and as you go, you're going to hit a moment where you're like, well, what's my lane now? Well, what do I do now? And so he really laid out a blueprint for us to kind of follow and like just go back to the beginning step by step and like figure out that higher purpose version of us in the lane there. Two things that I want to tap on. One, I want to tell you, get out of my house. Nobody told you to come up around here. All up in my house and stuff. But no, I've dealt with this a lot. Like I'm gonna be like, this is the journey to more, right? We got to be for real. So I've dealt with navigating unwanted burdens a lot. Specifically this morning. And I'm like, I don't want to be up at 3:30 in the morning reading the Bible and praying, but it is like the burden that I have for the call that is on my life. And so there was a time where I was really frustrated with it. And Dr. Daniels actually coached me through it. He was like, Jamila, what is going on? I'm like, I don't know why this is happening in life and I don't like it. How would you help that prior version of me?
absolutely. So I think it's asking yourself a series of questions, right? So sometimes we are quick to jump to conclusions without asking the proper questions. And anytime I ask the wrong questions, I'm gonna always get the wrong answer, right? It's like, how can I have the right answer with the wrong question? So it's like I can reach conclusions without like really figuring out like how do we get here? Like
Yeah.
I'm stuck. It's like, where are you stuck? How do you feel stuck? What does stuck mean? What it's like, okay, because we can feel like our entire life, for example, is sinking. And it's like maybe the entire life isn't. Maybe there's some other parts out of alignment, other parts that are creating this frustration where it makes me despise everything else that I'm doing. So I was back to with some clarifying questions like, okay, how do you feel in general? how do you feel about this? Like, I might even go back and say, well, who do you feel like you are? Like, let's talk about you.
Yeah.
Because I probably would ask, like, what do you do? And after you say what you do, I say, well, who are you? And it's like, sometimes it's like, those are the same. It's like, no, this is what you do, but who are you? If your title didn't walk in the room, what walked in? And sometimes we can kind of just feel bogged down with even that, because it's like oftentimes we're some variation of, like, again, the word we use in the culture space, like we're often some variation of like our avatar. Like we're some
Mhm.
variation of the people we've been called to serve in some way, shape, or form, oftentimes. So it's like, okay, if we're talking to you, it's like, okay, well, I'm a woman, I'm highly educated, I'm professional, I'm this, I'm navigating this space. Like, okay, well, what are some of the things that are causing some difficulty? So it's like when God's often waking us up at night or not letting us sleep at night, is because he's trying to show something to us about us that for whatever reason our daytime ain't allowing. It's like I don't feel like he just chooses to speak to us at 3 in the morning because he don't have other times. I think he chooses to speak to us at the time of 3 in the morning because we have not made other time. So it's like, because our days are so full, it's like, well, I'm gonna get what I gotta get to you to you. So if you're not gonna make the time in the day, I'll make the time at night. So this is the plight you're choosing to have in terms of some of that, right? It's like, okay, so I would come back and say, you're feeling as if, well, I would actually, do you feel as if you're having a clarity issue in terms of what you should be doing? Or are you struggling with ways in which to carry that out? And you probably come back and say, well, I kind of feel like I should be doing this, but what does that look like? And I say, okay, well, what are some ways you may be aware of that you can carry this out? And we just kind of walk through some of that, because that can be kind of some of the more complicated processes of it. But it's like, why is God waking me up? Because he wants to hear from you and he wants you to hear from him. Why why is this happening like this? Are you making time in the time in which, does that make sense? Like I'd ask clarifying questions, because most of the time we feel stuck, but it's in these areas where we're just not, I don't feel like we're asking ourselves the right question. If we ain't asking ourselves, we know we can't ask God.
If we're not asking ourselves the right questions, we're always going to get the wrong answers. And then if we're not asking ourselves the right questions, then how can we then go to God about these things? Super duper important for us to lean in on. And even just the fact that, like, making time throughout the day. And I think that's important for everyone to kind of think through, especially if you are a person of faith. And you could think you're making time throughout the day, but it's not the time that should be made in the way that it should be made for the posture that you should have during that time. And I think that's kind of the issue that occurs in life. And so, even if I'm thinking about my own journey and where I'm going in terms of being able to just serve at a higher capacity, right? Because a lot of times we want to be, this person, or we want to like get to this status and do all of these things. But the reality is the level of transformation that's needed in your mind and in your life to do those things is like, I can't even explain it. So, like, I wonder how we can support people and kind of help them think through ways to like level up in a sense. Cause like they're like, yeah, I want more money. But like, yeah, do you want to be the person that makes more money? Do you want to get up at 5? You know?
So let's talk about that, right? So like
Mhm.
the journey to more is a journey to more, right? So like for you, your journey to more is a reality of more. And many times people want more of stuff. I want more of this or more of that. And more of anything is more of everything. So it's like I can't want the blessing of a thing and not be willing to manage the burden of a thing. So right, very key word. I have to manage the burden. The burden is going to come with the blessing. So if we view the burden like, if we view the burden solely as a burden to get rid of, we won't realize most of those burdens aren't going to go away. Schedule management will never go away if you want. It doesn't go away if you don't want responsibility. It undeniably has to be managed if you do. Like you don't lose responsibility because you don't want to carry it. You just may not be doing anything with it. So your life is all over it, your family's all over. But it's a burden to manage. It's a reality of the backside of the blessing. It's a reality of the backside of leadership. It's a reality of the backside of walking in my promise. Is I've got to learn these different types of things, and that only happens through the process of becoming, right? So we have to be willing to be bad at something long enough to get good at it. And most of us aren't willing to be bad at something long enough. So it's like, even if we talk about something like calendar management, like the average person that's not an innate skill, that's something you learn. The average person doesn't want to take the time to be like, but I messed this up or I did this. So it's like it just doesn't get done. Closet.
Mhm.
Or like if you just simplify that, like let's not go complex. The basic things, because most of us are unfamiliar with them. We've never done them before. They become so intimidating and debilitating that we don't do them. But they're necessary for us to end up and be at where we want to be, and be at where we want to be and feel like we're called to be responsibly, and to be like and to be there in a sustainable way. So we're in this day and age where gaining influence is easier than it's ever been,
Right.
but you need infrastructure for your influence. It's like you got all these followers. Where you going? Where they going? Where you taking them? How you reaching out to them? How you doing this? How you doing that? You've got this large platform, but what's your character like? Because to sustain that and to manage it responsibly, the
Mhm.
character got to be in place. To meet with a certain degree of people, you got to mean what you say and say what you mean, which means more than just your words. It means your actions. It means your time management. Are you getting? So it's like it's the building process, Jamila, that I feel like on that journey that most people don't step into because several reasons, but I think one of them is we got a lot of information that's going out there with no evaluation of the source of information.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
then, because everybody got a podcast and everybody got a show and everybody is a coach and everybody got this. And it's like, yeah, uh, you know what I'm saying? It's discerning the voices. But I think that the biggest piece of it is like the journey of becoming. Like we have to, one writer talks about this, how we have to learn to enjoy the process of becoming, because we end up realizing that the journey that the actualization of it is not as monumental as we think it is once we get there. And once you get there, you're on a continual pursuit of your next there. It's like once I get there, I got to sustain it. I got to work for it. It's like, what's my next? So I have to learn to enjoy the process of becoming, enjoy the process of growth, and realize that growth brings pain, right? There's growing pains, there's stretching pains, there's a lot associated with it, but it's the inevitable. And I think that what gets most people kind of stuck, or some people kind of stuck, is this middle ground that is inevitable and it has to be managed and it has to be mastered. And again, for people of faith, have to understand that we have this notion and this truth about grace being sufficient, right? So understand that there's that God makes up for what we don't have when we use what we do, right? That like that's we got to use what we do have,
Yeah.
use what He has said, and trust that He will make up for the rest. He doesn't expect us to use anything He didn't give us, but He does expect us to make full use of everything that He did. So it's like, what does that mean? What does that look like? And then how do I practically take the time to learn how to use my slingshot and not just go out there throwing stuff at anything?
Y'all make sure y'all not going out there just throwing stuff at
I'm
anything.
gonna do this. We've seen it. I'm gonna do this today. I'm gonna do this tomorrow. It's just like they're trying everything, taking no time to master anything, because it's never. When I see that, I know it's a disconnect between the truth about what they're capable of
Mhm.
and the truth about what they're called to. Because I'm not called to everything I'm capable of doing. I
Right.
could do a lot.
Mhm.
What am I supposed to be doing? You could do a lot of things. Most people do a lot of things in the course of their day, and the reason why they're unfulfilled tonight is because all the things that they did were none of what they were supposed to be doing. It was all of what they could, none of what they should. So they went to sleep mad.
Listen, I knew that this was like a divine type of interview, right? And I didn't ask for no intervention, but here I am getting an intervention live with the people. Yeah, it's just so much great things that are coming out of this conversation, and even just how you're empowering me and empowering this audience. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier that I think that we all have to navigate. So when you get to that place, whatever that next place is in your life, there is sometimes a struggle with having false humility and just downplaying who you are, the things you do, and all the things. Like, how do we navigate managing and like getting over that hump?
Yeah, so I see it in every field that I work in and with every people group that I work with. I see it in the church, I see it out of the church. I see the educational sectors, I see it in the corporate sector, I see it in the coaching space, I see it with entrepreneurs who are looking to launch something, I see it with athletes that they're wrestling between being confident in what they have, confident in what they want to offer and deliver, and like this sense of like, but I can't talk about it. In the sense of like, but when
Mm-hmm.
is it too much for me to post about it? But when is that a sense of, am I bragging because I'm saying I'm good? Am I bragging because I may do this? And there's a truth that again, even if you're not religious, that everything we know about the foundation of our faith, which is Jesus, everything we know about Jesus, Jesus told us. So like we only know who he is because he'd walk into a room and be like, I am the truth and the light. Nobody comes to the Father but through me. Does that make him braggadocious? Does that make him arrogant? Or does it make him honest? Right? It makes him honest and aware that that can't happen without me. That when you add me to it, this is what I bring. So I think it takes a degree of emotional awareness, like emotional maturity, of being really clear about who I am, really clear about what I do, really clear about the value I bring, and not letting anybody else make me feel bad about the value I bring. I think that's kind of where this has happened. Like for those who are raised in church or in church environments, I think they've kind of taught this like humility is like honestly insecure. Like you're not humble till you're insecure about your gifts, and it's just like that makes no sense at all. Like the fact when you're super like shy and reserved about what you're good at, it's like now you're being humble. It's like no, that makes no sense at all. Like that is when you are insulting God and it's you are so insulting God when you pretend like you're not good at something you're good at. Because
Mm.
others want you to feel like treat you like you're humble about it. Like it is to say to God. I tell my athletes this all the time. That is to say to God, you could have took the fullness of the skills, gifts, and talent that you gave me and gave it to somebody else. Like that is what they're saying. It's saying like
Mm.
that's what happened. Is like, but I want to go out there again. So right now, I'm working specifically with some professional basketball players and professional football players. So when I'm working with some of them on the NFL side, they're like, man, I want to go out there and if they're on defense, I just want to go. My job is to go out there and tackle them and hit them as hard as I can. But it's like, yo, if I do that, am I like being less a person of faith? Because am I supposed to knock down my
Mm.
fellow brother? It's like, yo, that those two have nothing to do with one another. Like you get to use the fullness of that big, strong body that you were created with. The hard work you have put in is to go out there and to perform your assignment or your task. Right? I'm gonna go back to the word empowerment. It goes back your assignment and your task. So what does it look like to make full use and to carry out your assignment or task? This is what you were called to, equipped to, so I can't be concerned about people who don't understand the fullness of that value. And I think most of the time that false humility sense kicks in when I'm allowing the voices of people who do not understand me, do not understand my value, do not understand them, do not understand whatever my faith system is. Most of them don't understand this critical thing. So I'm allowing all the other voices that are just seemingly inconsequential to become significant. That's the best way I could put it. I could really put it another way, but I'm going to that one. Like all these voices that are seemingly inconsequential, that have no actual strength to speak in us and to make us feel bad about what we're good at. And it is saying back to God and it is saying to ourselves. Like, I'm gonna argue to me and say some of us get so discouraged about working hard is because when I work hard and I allow some of those other voices to get in my ear, like maybe I shouldn't be working as hard anymore because I'm not seeing fruit, but I'm not seeing fruit because I'm working hard and ain't telling nobody how hard I work. So like I did all of this. So like if I'm a course creator, so I could record the course, I could write the content, I could do everything behind the scenes. But if I allow this false sense of humility to get in the way. I won't tell nobody about this course I created. So now my course didn't go anywhere. I didn't sell anything. And now I feel like I'm not any good. And the issue was this false sense of humility in the beginning that if I just make it, God's going to put it on somebody's heart to call me. And it's like, where are they going to find you at? How did they hear about it?
Right, right.
You know, again, if we people of faith, it's like even the preacher. It's like how the teaching says faith come by hearing and hearing by the word. How shall we hear lest he teach? So it's like if he ain't teaching, the people ain't hearing. Does that so it's like there's this false sense of like humility that is really and here's I believe it's well intentioned for some people, right? Because it's them trying to prevent from becoming arrogant. But it is not arrogant for me to say I'm good at a thing. It is not arrogant for me to say when people talk to me, typically they walk away feeling better, they feel encouraged, they feel equipped, they feel clear. Like that's just being clear. And I'm able to do it, but by the grace of God, and let's call it what it really is. I'm able to do it, but by the grace of God, and I put in the work. And there's nothing wrong with saying both of those. It's like I didn't wake up this good. You know what I mean? I didn't wake up this good. I woke up with an assignment, but I had to go put in the work. You didn't wake up knowing law. You woke up with this desire to grow and to really make a difference, but you put in the work to learn the law.
I put in the work.
Like, you put in the work. You put in the work and the dollars. You know what I mean? And so it's like it is an insult to God, and I believe it is one of the things that makes us step into some aspects of this imposter syndrome because we don't see the results when we allow false humility to get in the way. Like it's just you won't see the results.
Yeah.
Because you're not living out your full potential. So you playing, you falling back. And we allow other people to make us feel arrogant. It's like I didn't feel arrogant when I was doing it. I didn't feel arrogant until you told me that was. It's like, wait a minute. You know what I mean? Like it's.
Yeah, I do know. I know.
I didn't even question what I just did till you just said something to me about it. You know, and like make sure you stay humble. I was I think. You know, it's just like. So let me be practical, right? I'm a practical guy.
Okay.
I have to keep my heart in the right place. I have to keep my feet on the ground. Where am I? Am I clear on the fact that I didn't get here by myself? Am I clear on the fact that I put in the work to get here, but I didn't get here by myself? So my feet on the ground, my heart in the right place, my mind on the right thing. I'm here to help people. It's not about me. But I'm here because I'm here on purpose. Like when those three things can kind of check the box for me, it's like, man, say less. If my mind ain't on the right thing, if my mind is on money and my mind should be on impact, because if my mind is on impact, I can make the money, right? Depending on what you do. Like the more people I impact, the more impact I bring, the more value I add, then there's a certificate of appreciation for the value I add. That's my mind on the right thing. So I'm not in it for the money. I realize the money comes with my impact. Bishop Jakes used to teach us this way. I was part of his mentorship for ministers under 40. So you say if you would just get better, you probably would get bigger, but you're more concerned about being bigger than better. So like I was never concerned about numbers. I was concerned about impact, and the more people I impacted, the more my influence grew. And so it's just my mind in the right place? I want a big following. Why? It's like why do I want it? Do I want it so that my name can be great, or do I want it because I realize that the more people that are following me, the more people I can reach, so I can deliver the value to, so their life can be changed through it? That changes everything. Changes everything. Or do I just want a big following to say I get a big following, but I ain't taking them nowhere? Like what separated? Call it what you want. Like Hitler was a very influential leader. He just led them the wrong way.
Right.
And so, like again, that's the difference. It's not about me, but he uses me. And I think that that's a piece that we all got to get to. It's like it's not about me, but he uses. I am the instrument. I am the vessel that's being used. And here's the part that gets me about it. Like we can see that in other people, but we wrestle with it about ourselves.
So good.
But it's living the empowered life. It's being clear. I have an assignment or a task to carry out too. So I'm not going to allow their lack of vision to determine my value. I need to become, which is why I started with, I'll go back to what I said. It starts with clarity. I'm clear on the value I add. I'm clear on the value I add. I'm a difference maker. I am a game changer. When I do this is what happens. My results speak for themselves. And it's like, I ain't got to argue with you about it. and I ain't got to back down from saying that this is what happens when I do it. I don't know why. It's probably what I would again. I might pick something else, but this is what I do, and that's where a lot of people, in my opinion, get stuck. And it's false humility. It does no good to pretend like I'm not adding value the way I'm adding value. It's an insult to God, and it does a disservice to the people you were called to serve.
No, so good. So many gems that, we can pick up from there, and just always taking it back to getting clarity on our value assignment, all the things. And so as we get ready to kind of wrap this up, I know that like you are all the things, and I might be like, just being a trusted voice right now, but you are all the things, and you've gotten to this place. But can you talk to us, like, what was your own journey to starting to live an empowered life? Because the reality is some of us have a greater mental toughness that allows us to get to empowerment faster than others. And so what was your path kind of like?
Yeah, so I think Angela Duckworth's book Grit around that, right, is an incredible one that talks about this resiliency factor and how resiliency is built over time, right? That some of us encounter sets of circumstances earlier or differently that kind of help us see this fight or flight mentality a little bit differently. It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
in the words of some of our ancestors, all my life I had to fight. You know what I mean? So it's like it's just kind of all they knew. Everything was a fight. So fight is in them. It's you take if you were to take Creed, right? If we're in real time, so you take Apollo, you take Adonis, and then you take the new guy, and it's just like the differences between how they approach it. For me, I was raised in a low socioeconomic community. In other words, I grew up in a poor community. You know what I mean? Like I
Yes.
grew up in a poor community. I grew up on a very dangerous block. I'm born and raised in the Chicagoland area. That was raised, across the street from me was one of the bigger drug dealers. Down the street from me, I was always seeing houses raided. I was raised by my mother and my grandmother. My father wasn't in my life. I never knew my father, to be exact. Here goes the trick. Here goes the caveat to that, Jamila. So I
Mhm.
never knew my dad as my dad.
Mm.
I've known my father my whole life, but he don't know I know he's my dad. So
Mm.
it's this all the more interesting kind of conundrum of like a decision of continually saying, am I going to allow what has happened to me and or my perceived limitations to limit me from what's possible, right? Like there are things, stigmas, stereotypes that are perceived limitations.
Right.
Does this have to limit me? So I'm a father of two. Oldest right now, again in real time, has a sweet 16 we're getting ready for. And in the same breath, my son turned 6 a couple weeks ago. So it's like 16, 6. I'm doing the best I can to be the best father to them that I could. I could say I can't be y'all daddy because I didn't have a daddy. Or I could say, because I didn't have a dad, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I'm the best father I can be to you with the tools that I have before me, and what nobody else gave to me, I want to give to you, right? Those are decisions. Living an empowered life is about decisions. So I was raised without my dad in my life, which meant I grew up without a male figure being consistently in my life, which could have created an example. It could have said, all right, well, this is what I'm gonna do because this is what I saw, or this is what I'm gonna do because of what I didn't see. Or it can be a decision to say, because I didn't see this, I will make sure people see me as this. I will make sure I become what I needed. I'll make sure I become what others needed to see. I'll make sure I raise up a generation of people that won't be like this. And I can speak to it to say, yes, you went through that. And yes, you saw this, but it is a definitive decision of saying, these were the lemons that I got. And I chose to throw them in the trash, or these are the lemons I got. And I decided to be like Beyonce. You know what I mean? Like, so, like that's it. I grew up low socioeconomic, raised my mother and my grandmother, no father in my life, no real consistent male presence in my life. And I struggled for years with just certain dynamics of it. And then ultimately just it really began to click. And again, there was some stuff that God protected me from until I was emotionally mature enough to really handle it and understand and recognize and wrestle through. But ultimately, it wasn't that everything was well at all. It's
Mhm.
never, if I look back categorically,
Mhm.
there was nothing that would point to whatever degree of influence I have, whatever degrees of opportunity I've been blessed to have, there is nothing that makes sense about me being where I am in terms of in terms of typical trajectories, right? Which is
Mhm.
why my conviction is either you're going to decide to be a barrier breaker or you're not. Right? It's really that simple. Either I'm going to decide that these are the barriers that I'm a black man. I don't know if I don't know if the audience realizes it yet, but I'm black. I was born black. I'm black. Like I walk into these predominantly white institutions oftentimes when I was speaking for like these colleges. Like, hey, I want to make it very clear to you all. I was born a black man. I'm gonna die a black man. I was born a black man without a dad. So statistically,
Mhm.
I shouldn't be here today. Like off
Yeah.
the basis of that alone, statistically, I was born a black man. I'm a die a black man. I was born a black man without my dad in a low socioeconomic community, and I to this day do not have a college degree. I statistically should not be before you all in whatever the room is. However, it was decisions that were made. How right? It's like what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Oh.
However, there were continual decisions that was made. So it's like, yeah, there's this God factor, but then there's this decision, Jamila, that I feel like we run from because like we always just
Yeah.
if you what decision are you making with that? What are you giving him to work with? And that was my life. That was my upbringing. That was my journey of just at some point in time, some stuff just had to click, and there had to be some decisions that was made. And will I live from these perceived limitations? They saying I can't do this. Well, who is they? And why
Yeah.
can't I do it? And at some point I was like, wait a minute, okay, wait a minute. I'm doing this. My church started with nothing. You heard me tell the story. We just turned 7. We started with nothing. And some people say nothing, and nothing be like $100,000 in the bank and like a building.
Mhm.
Like, no, we had enough for weekend 1. And I spent weekend 1 the day before the weekend, the weekend 1, meaning Saturday and Sunday. I spent all of Saturday and Sunday on Saturday. So if God didn't move on Sunday, it's not going to be a week 2. It's like, you know what I mean? So it's like definitive decisions to say, I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna do it without what they say I need. I'm gonna do it without whatever anybody else says it takes. I'm gonna put in the work. I'm gonna believe that it's gonna pay off. I got the encouragement, I got the authority, I got the freedom, and I got the tools to carry out the assignment of the task. And it's decisions that just have to continually be made. I could give up now. It's like, I could stop. That's everybody's thing. I could stop. But at some point, somebody say, "Well, what happens if I keep trying?" Book that changed my life. I would love to say it was the Bible. The Bible was one. Second book that changed my life though was called "Who Moved My Cheese."
Hmm.
It's a book I read, and it's a way back when. It might have been first time I might have read it. Might have been in high school. Second time I read it was in college. It's called "Who Moved My Cheese," and it was this book about saying like ultimately there was a question in the book that said, "What would you do if you weren't afraid?" Because it was this notion of these two mice that had the same opportunity, but the one mice just kept talking about where the cheese used to be, and the other one was realizing the cheese was leaving. So I can keep chasing the cheese right here, or I can realize and recognize that this cheese ain't gonna always be here. So where else can I go? How else can I grow? How else can I evolve instead of waiting for somebody to bring me something? Like we're waiting on somebody to come and save us. It's like
No.
everything you got is to take you out. So I feel like I completely over answered your question. It's the communicator in me. So
No, I think it's great, and if I think about the takeaway is like no matter the circumstances, one of the takeaways rather, no matter the circumstances, you have to make a decision on how you're going to perceive things, and then you're going to have to make a decision to move differently than what you may have experienced or what you have seen. And it kind of goes back to the core principles that you outlined in the beginning about clarity, overcoming, confidence, courage, all the things. And so like, we can see this just showing up throughout your entire life. So, y'all are lucky that I let y'all in on this like personal coaching session that I got, this personal empowerment session that I got. And because I just happen to be his friend, like it just worked out like that. But if you want to make sure that you are being empowered, you want to make sure that you connect with him on YouTube at Empowerment Church. And then you also want to connect with him on all social media handles at Teddy Matthews. Teddy, is there any one last thing you want to leave for this audience and for me personally? Because, I'm taking it off.
I think the reality of it, if I was to just like leave this definitive statement, it would be wherever you are, whatever you're wrestling through, you have the power to make a decision to say, am I going to stay here or am I going to see what happens if I try? And I feel like there's so much power in that. Like, man, what would happen if I just tried? If I just if I just committed to really throw myself at it? Like the worst that could happen is I was wrong. It's like the worst that can, and I believe like for people of faith, I believe God honors that. I believe God will honor you sincerely thinking you were doing it right and throwing yourself at it, as opposed to just sitting there and doing nothing, waiting on this whatever to come. Like that's the biggest thing I would say is what can happen if you would try.
No, that's good. Somebody out there right now is like being shaken in their spirit and soul to like, dang, like I gotta rewatch this. I gotta make sure I catch everything. And then I gotta make sure that like I'm really reflecting in the areas where I may have been comfortable and confident enough to try there. But I know that I need to be comfortable and confident to try there
Mhm.
as well. And so for y'all that's looking to live empowered lives through entrepreneurship, you want to make sure that you connect with me on all social media handles at I am and more, and visit the website at iamandmore.com. It literally is an affirmation for who you are every time you type in that URL, that social media handle. Many people told me like you need to play it off your last name, and it was just like, nah, I need people to like get that in their spirit and down in them when they see it. So we thank you for your time, Mr. Matthews. I feel like a Dr. Matthews is coming. We thank you for your time. We honor you. And then everyone, we will see you on the next episode. See you soon.